Hey guys, welcome to Cosmic Road. Let a few people get in here. Hope you're having a good day. You're having a good Friday. It's a beautiful day here in Texas and College Station. Lovely weather, about 70 degrees or so. Actually, about 60 degrees, never mind. But it's still a very beautiful day, very sunny, very nice. But let's talk about the UAP report. So I did a live stream yesterday, talked about it for over an hour, but I've been thinking about it. And I think there are some major implications from the report that we should discuss. So, and also I wanted to go over some of the official reaction. People like Lou Elizondo and others have come out talking about it and giving their responses. Chris Mellon has talked about it. Representative Tim Burchett has talked about it. I actually replied to Lou Elizondo on Twitter. Let's see if he replies to that. But yeah, so let's go over some of the official responses to the UAP report, and I'll give you some of my thoughts and what I think the implications are. So, can everybody hear me? Is my mic working? Is everything working? If you could let me know in the chat when you get a chance. Let's see. Is there any feedback? You're loud and clear. Okay, very good. Thank you. All good of a sound. Excellent. Okay, well, let's go over here. Here's what Lou Elizondo had to say. He says, yes, Shannon, I agree. LOL. This is only one of many reports to follow, and there's no putting the cat back in the bag. From 144 to 510, he's talking about the number of UFO cases in 1 year. More to follow. So, that's very encouraging. He's talking about how there will be more and hopefully better reports to come in the future. So that, he's expecting that and looking forward to that. So I think that's encouraging. However, my reply to him was, thanks for the encouraging words, Lou. But my question would be, can any future reports go against the findings of this report? Because they openly lied in this report about health effects and collisions. They really didn't give us much in this report, but what they did, they lied about as much as they could. There are really only a few pieces of information in the report. There's no negative health effects. There's no health effects, and there's no collisions. Oh, and here's the number of cases we've had. I mean, that was basically all that was in the report. So, and so two of those things they lied about. So in a future report, will they actually go against the findings of this original report? Will they say, oh, never mind, we were wrong about that. We have updated information that now shows that to be an error. Will they do that? I mean, will they actually say we made a mistake, or, hey, yeah, sorry, we were lying? Will they say that? I mean, they're not going to say they were lying, but will they admit to having an error? Because that's kind of a huge deal. And I'll go over why in a minute. And Tim Burchett, I can never say his name right. Tim Burchett, Representative Burchett, he says, yes, it's a cover-up. Somebody asked him, Tim, can you comment on the new UAP report? And his one sentence or one line reply was, yes, it's a cover-up. So that's not great. And he's been sitting in on at least some of these meetings, according to Dr. Gary Nolan. So, and then we have Chris Mellon's reply, and he gives a kind of a lengthy response on his website. And so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he says key takeaways from the report. As is plainly evident from the war in Ukraine and the recent conflicts in Armenia and Yemen, drones are playing a rapidly increasing role in deciding the outcome of military conflicts. Therefore, any capability that helps reduce the clutter, blah, blah, blah. He's saying that if some of these things can be identified as drones, that's good, because then we will have improved our ability to do that. Two, he says, and this is Chris Mellon's response, if you're just joining me, This is Chris Mellon's response to the UAP report. He also says, despite major breakthroughs in identifying many UAP, the total number of remaining military UAP incidents reported to the office has more than doubled from 143 in June of 2021 to 314 in August of 2022. That number will continue to grow, and with it, the importance of continuing UAP collection and analysis. Three, thankfully, the report reveals major progress in developing an effective government capability for investigating the UAP enigma and kicking down the doors of ignorance that for too long have prevented progress in understanding the phenomenon. Congress made this possible, and continued congressional support will remain critical as the new UAP organization competes for access to intelligence collection and analysis capabilities. He says, four, unfortunately, the report presents the bare minimum of information needed to comply with Congress's request for an unclassified report. Yeah, no kidding. Like I said, there was really nothing in this report. I mean, it was lying about health effects, lying about collisions, and just giving us some statistics, some numbers about what cases had been solved versus which ones hadn't. That was it for the report. I mean, if you saw anything different, please let me know. So he says, we're talking about Chris Mellon and his response to the report. He says, unfortunately, the report presents the bare minimum of information. Yep, exactly. He says, for example, the preliminary report disclosed the number of incidents that were confirmed by multiple sources. That information may indeed be in the classified report. But it is not in the unclassified report. Okay, yeah. So, but basically, yeah, the preliminary report had the numbers. So this report didn't really give us anything new on that. He says, five, the government again demonstrated its unique and uncanny ability to transform an inherently fascinating topic into vexing bureaucratic jargon. So, that's what he says. Oh, and he says, in sum, the good news is that the UAP issue is gaining traction and acceptance within the government. So, all that's true. All that's, true. There's some good stuff there, I guess. And Representative Gallagher, he responded. He says, the DNI's most recent UAP report reinforces what we already know, that we must figure out what our military aviators are observing in our airspace. The whistleblower protections recently passed into law are an essential step forward to solving this decades-long mystery, and will ensure that those entrusted with defending America from potential threats have all the required information, historical context, and scientific resources to do so. Excuse me. Just kind of, a very polite response from Representative Gallagher, not really pushing anything forward. I haven't received a reply from Lou Elizondo yet on my question, so I'll keep you updated if I hear from him. And, let's see. I'm about to get into my thoughts and what I think the implications of all of this are. But first, I want to check your comments. I work in security, and one time many years ago, one of our employees was sexually assaulted, escaped, got help from us, and I helped find the guy and told the police where to look. Okay. All right. Oh, is that remote viewing? Is that what you're trying to say? You had a remote viewing ability? Cool. Bearded Jedi says, hey, Christian Morales says, Jack, you need to see the slides from Sean D. Patrick. Do you mean Sean, what's his name? Kirkpatrick, the head of Arrow? Yeah. What slides are you talking about? I didn't see anything in the report. Is there some additional material? Because I would love to see it if there's some additional material. So yeah, if you know of any slides, please provide a link. That'd be awesome. Yeah. Oh, you're trying. A person says, I can't see a name. All I see is the logo. It says, sorry, I was trying to relate that big organizations lie to look good. Yeah, true. True. Christian says, yes, it's a presentation, not in the report. Okay. Okay. Well, so far, I am not impressed by Sean Kirkpatrick based on this report. I was really hoping that he would prove better than Bray and Moultrie, who openly lied to Congress, minimizing the UAP issue and actually lying about various incidents. I was really hoping that Sean would be a bird of a different feather and that would be a truth teller committed to disclosure and giving real information to the public, but he has not shown himself to be. So yeah. Bearded Jedi says, I have to ask you while you're live, what do you think of me getting responses in the sky from my laser? What could it be? Um, well, what responses are you getting? I guess is my question. Do you mean you're doing CE5 and you're, the sun, an object appears and you're using the laser to tell it where to go? Or are you getting, some other reply, some like direct messages? Let me know. I would love to hear your experience. But yeah, people do interact with UFOs or, whatever you want to call them, objects in the sky, UAP, with laser pointers. And they seem, to get a good result. UFOs will often interact with the laser pointers. So that's really interesting. Bearded Jedi says, it's like an object goes exactly where my laser was pointed and like flashes. Yeah, almost feels like an acknowledgement. Yeah, that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. My MUFON group, I co-founded a local MUFON group, and we've used CE5 twice in our two Skywatches. And we've had, amazing results both times, but we haven't used a laser pointer yet, and we need to get one. In fact, we have a meeting coming up in a couple weeks, but it's not a Skywatch. But I need to go ahead and get a laser pointer. Absolutely. Because yeah, that's what I've heard is you can actually interact with the UFOs using a laser pointer. You can point to the part of the sky where you want them to go, and they'll go there sometimes when they're in the mood. It doesn't seem to move in a straight line, almost wonky. Yeah, that's interesting. Some of the best UFO videos we have of them are of them moving in a very wonky way. I don't know if that's what you mean, but sometimes they look like they're on wires, and which is why many people thought they were fake and still think they're fake. But it appears that they are riding on the Earth's electromagnetic field, and it just kind of makes them go like that, and it totally looks fake. But it's not. Anyways, that's like the George Adamski footage, among others, show them moving in that kind of wonky way. So I'm not sure if that's what you mean exactly. I didn't see. Yeah, that's right. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, let me go over some of my thoughts. And by the way, channel break. Please like, please subscribe, share on social media, all that other kind of stuff. If you wanted to support the channel, there's you can leave a tip in the tip jar with the super thanks feature. You can join the channel, become a channel member. See the first line in the description. Or, I'm a novelist, buy one of my books. Link in the description. Okay, sorry. Had to do a channel break there. I didn't know you did CE5. Yeah, the CE5 is really cool. Although it was really weird. We didn't get like the traditional, like what I think the experience that you're describing sounds more like, I mean, I don't want to say traditional. That sounds like I'm putting it down, but I'm not. I'm just saying, the classic CE5 is where you do the meditation and you bring the object in or the beings in, and sometimes you can use the laser pointer to guide them, and you can interact with them in that way. Well, what we did, what we experienced was a little different. Maybe because my Reiki instructor Bonnie, I asked her to kick it off because I didn't want to have a negative experience. And there are negative things out there that you can attract with CE5, so I have heard. And she initiated the event, and we got our energy swirling together and connected to the whoever, and invited the beings of the highest vibration down. And the first experience, I'm not going to get into a huge long explanation of that now, but the Reiki beings came down, which was really weird and really, really, really cool. And then the next time, the second Skywatch, a different group of beings came down. But it wasn't like, your traditional nuts and bolts stuff in the sky. Anyway, but let me go over what I think the implications of the UAP report are. I actually wrote them down trying to get organized. So, number one, they're lying about health effects. And the UAP report has said there were no health effects. And, in particular, they're probably talking about negative health effects. So that's a lie. We know from numerous accounts, many accounts, that people have had negative health effects. I have a cat saying hello. People have gotten cancer, they've had immuno problems, all sorts of stuff. So that's just a flat out lie. And another major health effect that people have had is pregnancies. And yeah, that's the hybridization program from abductions. And that may be one reason why they lied about it, because they don't want to go there. They don't want to talk about abductions. They don't want to admit that's a thing. Here, I gotta have a sip of water. But yeah, like I was saying just a couple days ago, I did a video when the Fox News anchor Brett Baer actually did a segment on UAP, and then he talks about, the segment, and they talk about health effects such as unwanted pregnancies associated with alien contact, or, anomalous contact. So they have openly admitted in the mainstream that there are real health effects and that the pregnancies are real, implying that the hybridization program is real. So that's in the mainstream now. But now they're trying to take it back. Now they're trying to say, oh, there's no health effects, there's no cancers, there's no hybridization program, there's, none of that is real. It's all BS. It's all BS. And so that's why I replied to Lou Elizondo. If you're just joining me, Lou Elizondo had a really encouraging tweet. I'll read it again. He says, this is only one of many reports to follow, and there's no putting the cat back in the bag. From 144 to 510 in a year, more to follow. And I replied, thanks for the encouraging words, Lou, but my question would be, can future reports go against the findings of this report? Because they openly lied in this report about health effects and collisions. So I'd be really curious to see what he has to say about that. And I'll let you know if he replies to me. So far he hasn't replied, but that would be super cool if he did, because I've never actually interacted with Lou. Yeah, so they're openly lying about health effects. The negative, and also pregnancies, whether you want to call that negative or not. So they're openly lying. They're openly lying. So in a future report, are they actually going to be able to undo that? Are they going to be, oops, we erred, we looked at the data wrong, actually these things are going on? I don't know. So that's an important question. Let's see, moving on. They're also lying about UFOs crashing into planes. We know they do. I just talked about the Preston Dennett video a few days ago. Preston Dennett is a great UFO researcher. He's put out a lot of books. He has a YouTube channel, and he's a very well thought of, respected UFO researcher. And he did a video just a few days ago, maybe a week ago, talking about the various cases. And he lists a bunch of cases, solid cases where planes and other vehicles have collided with UFOs. That seems incredible, but it seems to be a real thing that these amazingly advanced, sophisticated craft are not infallible. They can crash, and they can crash into things, including planes, trains, and automobiles. So, that they lied about that. And it's clear you can see the direction of their lies, right? Because they're saying there's nothing to worry about. There's no health effects. No, that's all BS. And there's no collisions. You don't, you fly in a plane, you don't need to worry about that. You're whatever. So they're trying to lie to make people think that there's no danger. And I'm not saying these things are dangerous. I don't want to put that out there. But it's a complicated issue. things make mistakes, things happen. Some of these guys are probably our friends, and some of them may not be. So it's a complicated issue, and but they are trying to simply dismiss it. Anyway, so I'll move on with my what I think the implications are. But I want to see if anybody has any comments. Um, it's a complicated topic, but must see slides. Okay, great. I will have to see that. Can you provide um, a link to that? Because I want to see Sean Kirkpatrick's slides. Yeah, I did see five. Susan Go released that 1500 FOIA document last March or April on purpose. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Susan Go, or however you say her name. The stigma needs to be reduced before we can talk about abductions. Yeah, no, I get that. I totally get that. But at least they can admit that there are health consequences. They don't have to talk about the pregnancies, but they can at least say that, yeah, some people got cancer from interacting with this or contracted an immuno disease from going to Skinwalker Ranch. So at least they could admit to some of the basic stuff, right? But they can't, because then that will be admitting that there is something to talk about. So Christian says, yeah, you need to see the slides. The UA report is for the public, and Sean, whatever his name is, did the slides for us, for people in the rabbit hole. Okay, cool. Well, I guess I'll just Google Sean Kirkpatrick slides, unless somebody can provide a link. Bearded Jedi says, also thoughts on Billy Meyer stuff. I know it's old news now, but I'm interested in your take. Yeah, at first I was very pro Billy, and then I was, looked at all the evidence against him, and I was anti Billy. But there are some really good people, like Wendell Stevens, a great UFO researcher, and I think he was like a test pilot, really cool guy. And he actually went and lived with Billy Meyer for a while and studied him. And he came away with the impression that Billy Meyer was the real deal. And I've seen other people as well. What's that lady, UFO researcher? Is it Donna? And she's kind of was a friend of Wendell Stevens, I believe. And she also was pro Billy, and she's a very good researcher. So, I'm kind of on the fence with Billy Meyer. I've seen people debunking him, but then I've also seen people debunking the debunkers. So I don't know. I don't know where I stand on Billy Meyer. I do believe in George Adamski. I think that's actually a pretty solid case, But Christian says I put the link in the chat. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it'll take time to go through. Yeah. Okay. Well, I will do that because I'm very curious about that. And I'm curious to see what he has to say about this report. Since they gave us nothing but lies and stuff they've already said in the preliminary report, the numbers. So, talking worse than a nothing burger, it's a lie burger. Anyway, let me move on with my thoughts here. Yeah, so they also say there's no proof of aliens. That's another thing they say. But they admit that about half of their cases, like 47% of their cases, are unexplained and represent genuine anomalies. So they are saying the bare minimum necessary to keep the program going. The bare minimum they can reveal publicly. Obviously, behind the scenes, there's a different story. We've had reports that people like Robert Solis have testified privately to these people. So, they are getting real information, and they should be putting more information out there for the public. We know from countless witnesses that military and government are actually working with the beings, shooting at some and working with others. So, they're definitely not going to say that in the report. By the way, guys, we've been shooting at these things for 50 years or 70 years. Yeah, they're not going to say that. That's going to come a long way down the hole, a long way down the disclosure process. But yeah, so they can lie all they want, but this stuff will come out, and we do have the whistleblower protection, and I'm hoping that some stuff will come out through that. Of course, it will come out behind closed doors, and we will see what they will reveal publicly. As of now, I am not encouraged that they're going to reveal much in the way of anything publicly, at least not yet. What will it take for them to reveal anything publicly? Well, I'll get to that in a minute because I do have some thoughts on that. But yeah, let's see. My bullet point here. The report represents a complete stonewall. Sean Kirkpatrick, I say is not our friend, but I will have to watch those slides. Maybe there's more to that story. But I'm really not encouraged. Whether it's in the slides or not, they should have put something in the report. He's the leader of Arrow. He should have put something in the report more than this. Now, is there an internal struggle within Arrow or Arrow versus some other group? The control group, whoever. Is there some internal conflict, and the bad guys won, and that's why they weren't able to put anything in the report? Maybe. So maybe Sean Kirkpatrick is our friend, and he's just battling a losing battle at the moment. But I'm not encouraged. I don't think it bodes well for Arrow at the moment. Um, but I do think that there is a but to that, unless this was the plan all along. That is, Arrow may have been designed from the get-go to force the mainstream government in Congress to take UFOs seriously, but not necessarily the people. And I think that's an important point. That may only come much later after the government is taking this seriously. So I think that it's very possible that that is what is going on. And oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. There's no name. I don't see a name for you, but somebody just contributed to the channel. I really appreciate that. What's your name? I just see your emoji. Is that a dinosaur? It's cool. Um, but yeah, but yeah, I think that's a possibility. I think that may be what's going on. Is that right now Arrow is and the effort behind Arrow is focused on getting government involved, getting the Congress involved, and getting them to take it seriously and become aware of what's going on. And I think that's a process that could play out over time. That's not going to be right away. They're going to have to digest this. It's going to have to leak out. It's going to have to become acceptable to talk about in Congress in a major way, in a big way, beyond these subcommittees. It's going to have to it's going to have to reach the mainstream in Congress and in the government. And I think that is a big part of what's going on, is to make this acceptable to talk about in government. And so once it's acceptable, they can, oh, thank you very much, Red Panda Koala. I really appreciate that. Thanks. Oh yeah, and by the way, I want to answer your question. The emoji dinosaur. Do you think the world allies and enemies will sanction America if we demonstrate game-changing tech, better than nukes type stuff? Do I think they will sanction America if we demonstrate game-changing tech? Um, I don't know. What you mean by that exactly? Do you mean that if we started unrolling our UFO technology, our alien technology, our reverse engineered stuff, or donated stuff, that it would affect our position with our allies? That's a fascinating question, actually. That's actually a really good question. Would they sanction us? Would they yeah, that's actually a fascinating question. I'm gonna have to digest that. What do you think? Because I think that's a really good question. Would they? Would that affect our relationship with our allies? Well, if we demonstrated superior technology, you would think that that would get them even more on our side, right? They wouldn't want to go against us, and it would probably dismay our enemies. So, I think it'd be a good psychological warfare to, say that we have that. So, again, that'd be, uh, why not go a little bit much, a little further down the path of disclosure, so we can tell our enemies that we have some stuff, or at least hint that we do, and um, might dismay them a little bit, might give them pause. Don't mess with us. We've got more than nukes. We've got alien ray guns and time manipulation and the vehicles that can go faster than the speed of light. Uh, you know, I think that's a really good question. I think that's a really good question. Thank you. Let's see. But they said balloon entities. I love that. I love that. Yeah, balloon entities. That was funny. I'm just imagining there's balloon entities out there right now, just floating around, being happy balloon entities. And yeah, thank you, Bearded Jedi. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, guys. Christian says they didn't say weather balloon. It's like the word balloon is to feed the skeptics, and entity is to feed us. It's BS. Yeah, it's totally BS. It's totally BS. But there's as a Bearded Jedi. There's a couple of messages retracted. I don't know if that's intentional or not. But yeah, Randy Quaid says Roswell was real. Yeah, Randy Quaid. I got a Randy Quaid story. Sorry. Dennis and Randy Quaid's dad was actually, I think he was a handyman, and he was my mom and dad's handyman, and they knew Dennis and Randy Quaid when they were little kids in Houston. So kind of a fun. Anyway, so we've always in my family kept up with the careers of Dennis and Randy. We've never actually been, friends with them, but their dad was a family friend. So, um, yeah, Christian wants to know what Red Panda thinks about the slides. Yeah, I'm really curious about the slides. I am going to have to seek them out. Can anybody, Red Panda, speak to what was in them? What did Sean Kirkpatrick say in those slides? Randy Quaid said, I haven't seen him for many years. I'm going to pretend that you're the real, the celebrity Randy Quaid. I don't want to say the real Randy Quaid. I'm sure there's other Randy Quaids out there. But yeah, love Randy, love the Quaid brothers. Let's see if anybody has. Yeah, and there's still no word from Lou Elizondo. I am waiting on a response from Lou or somebody that will, answer that question that I had. I asked him if future reports could go against the findings of this report. Would they admit they were in error? They're not going to admit they lied, but would they admit they were in error on the first report, saying that there were no health effects in no collisions? We know that's BS. These things are not infallible, weird as that is to think about. If you watch um, the missing 411, the UFO connection that just came out by David Paulides, there was the fascinating example of the UFO that abducted an elk in view of witnesses. And as it took off, it hit a tree. It just kind of blundered right into a tree. It was a smallish UFO. It wasn't that much larger than the elk, maybe a drone. I don't know. And it abducted this poor elk and took it up, and on its way out, it smashed into a tree. I hope the elk was okay, although I guess it wouldn't be okay in the long run, because apparently these aliens were hunting elk, weirdly, although they were also carrying out abductions. Seemingly, the fellow they abducted, who came back and was able to tell about this, said that he had a vasectomy, but he believes they would have kept him if he hadn't had a vasectomy. Now, they didn't outright tell him that. That was just his conjecture. But if if what he thinks is true and that he would have been abducted, then that means some of the beings carrying out abductions are elk hunting, because they were all they were abducting elk, and elk was a big theme in that movie. Elk hunters were being abducted, and the beings were hunting elk or abducting elk. So, really a weird set of data there. I don't know what to make of that. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Link to the slides. Okay, is there a link maybe in the comments? Oh yeah, and please hit like, please subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Let's see. Let's see. Red Panda says the slides are more interesting than the report. Yeah, well, I hope so. I need to deep dive them. Still, though, health effects is interesting. What do you think? Yeah, well, the health effects are very interesting, and they're important. I mean, they're affecting people. People are getting cancer from some of these things. Now, to be fair, it doesn't seem like those are intentional. It doesn't seem like any of the beings or the ships are intentionally giving people cancer. It seems to just be a byproduct of getting too close to these things at the wrong time in the wrong place. And some of these things, specifically thinking about the blue orbs mentioned in Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, the book by George Knapp, James Latatsky, and Colm Kelleher. There were these 3 blue orbs that this fellow, who was not associated with Skinwalker Ranch in any way, but they investigated his case. He was driving his car with his daughter, I believe, and these 3 blue orbs who were playfully frolicking in a field near them that they were passing by. The orb saw them and came over into the car, and one passed through him, and he developed terminal cancer from that, or a very rare, deadly form of cancer that he was ultimately able to beat. But it was a really bad form of cancer, a very rare, weird form of cancer, which is something that you see again and again in these health related instances. So, but here's the interesting thing about that. I mean, even more interesting thing. That night, after the thing had passed into him, he had this weird dream where he heard a being say, "We're going to fix this." And then it seems like some attempt was made by the beings to address the health effects, but they were unsuccessful, or at least he did develop cancer. We don't know exactly what they did, but he did develop cancer, but he did beat it. Did they help him do that? Maybe, maybe. But that does speak to it's not an intentional thing. They're not meaning to harm us with these health effects. It just seems to happen, you know. So yeah, and Hal Puthoff actually talked about that. Dr. Hal Puthoff, in the scientific article that he wrote, a peer-reviewed scientific article that he wrote about zero-point energy and ships that use zero-point energy. Now, this may have been an oblique way of describing actual working UFOs. He seemed to be talking theoretically about if we could use zero-point energy to build these ships, that they would have these specific, effects or capabilities, or people could have time dilation if one approached these things, which is what happened in like the Rendlesham Forest case. There were soldiers and they were moving toward the ship, and one soldier that was ahead of the others, I'm going to get the details wrong because I'm not looking at it right now, but he got there and ahead of them, and he was dilated or in a different time, displaced in time from him. It doesn't appear to have been like an abduction, like a missing time in that case. It appears that time simply had a different meaning for him at that time. And yeah, so that appears to be the sort of thing that Dr. Hal Puthoff was talking about in that paper. But he also explains how this technology could cause cancer and radiation. I don't know if he says cancer, but he does say radiation. So, are these things using zero-point energy? Because that's something that I've actually just talked about I did a couple of videos on ARVs, the alien reproduction vehicles. Well, Mark McClandish, I think that's his name, who is the main person that this information is coming from, the aerospace designer, Mark McClandish. And there's other corroborating sources as well. Even John Keel was talking about these things. And apparently they've been around since the 60s, but they apparently use 0 point energy. According to the information that Mark McClandish was getting, they use 0 point energy. The alien reproduction vehicles, the ARVs, the human created UFOs that have apparently, according to what I can tell, have been in operation since the 1960s at least. So, it is interesting though that when people were seeing them in like the 70s and 80s, they came away with the impression that these were prototypes, but they were very old. They were functioning, working prototypes. So maybe they were, when they had this briefing where they were showing this object, they were showing the prototype, they were keeping the other, newer ships somewhere else. I don't know. It's a weird subject. I really don't. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Bearded Jedi says thoughts on the great Bob Lazar. Oh, I'm a big Bob fan. I believe Bob. I believe his story. I believe that. Well, I mean, it just seems like so much of what he has said has panned out over the years. So, time after time, things that he has said have been confirmed. The hand, I want to call it the hand spanner. That's not right, but the little hand device that he had to use to get access to the facility. Well, for many years, that was missing. Nobody could find anything like that. And then all of a sudden, a few years ago, people found it, corroborating his story. And there have been incidents after incidents, like the fellow that hired him. He had this really unusual name, and nobody could find him for a long time. And then they found him. So just things that he has said have been corroborated time after time. Um, Now, the element 115 thing is really interesting because if that's true, then that indicates a different power source, I think, than the 0 point energy that the ARVs are using. Presumably, the ARVs would be using the type of power source that whatever race we're working with or, reverse engineering these craft from are using. So, you would think that the ship that Bob Lazar worked on would use the same power source. So, why are they not using 0 point energy unless element 115 somehow, creates the energy needed to access 0 point? I don't know, but obviously there could be multiple power sources out there. The 0 point energy doesn't need to be the end of the story as far as energy needed to fly these craft, but it is an interesting wrinkle in all of this. uh, so Bearded Jedi says, have you heard of Megan Rose? No, I don't think so. She claims to be in contact with Val Neck, and the Galactic Federation is indeed real. She seems legit. Yeah, it's still hard for me to say Galactic Federation without a giggle, but I think that it may be real, and I think that may be a thing. I think that, and it makes sense. Obviously, if we are interacting with beings, then they're beings. I mean, they've got a race, they've got a culture, they've got countries. And if that's true, then there's probably unlimited number of races and countries and beings. Obviously, they would need some sort of federation or some sort of organization, and they would have allies and unions. So of course there's a galactic federation, and there's probably multiple federations. Some of them like each other, and some of them don't. Um, hopefully the Galactic Federation are the good guys, and we're friendly with them, and they're helping us against the ones that aren't so friendly. But I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, but even the what was his name? The Israeli scientist who was actually, I think he was a general, right? But he was also a scientist, or am I getting that wrong? I'm probably going to get his name wrong. Haim Ashed, something like that. But yeah, he said the Galactic Federation was real. And he said U.S. politicians knew about it. Even the president knew about the Galactic Federation, according to Haim Ashed, if I'm saying that name right. And he was a very credible guy. I mean, a very solid dude. Um, yeah, so I think the Galactic Federation, as nutty as it sounds, is probably real, but it's really not that nutty. I mean, if these beings exist, like I said, they have a race, they have a culture, they have countries, they have leaders, they have organization, and they're here. So obviously, if they have some sort of organization, we would hopefully be interacting with that organization. We wouldn't be interacting with rogue elements. So hopefully, we would be interacting with the Galactic Federation to give it a name. But Megan Rose, if you know, I've listened to so many experiencers. I've I may be missing her name. Her name may just have escaped me. If I saw her picture or listened to her an interview with her, maybe that would come back to me. But yeah, channel break. Welcome to Cosmic Road. Please hit like, please subscribe, consider becoming a channel member to support the channel, link in the description, or simply leave a tip in the tip jar with the super thanks feature below. Thank you. Let's see. Rick Roberts says, Y Files just did a great video on ARVs. Okay, and Mark, etc. It's a great overview. Yeah, I saw that. I did. I watched that, and that was a terrific overview. It really was. And I think that's the one where they talked about free energy, right? Or am I misremembering that? Where the free energy pioneers were being assassinated, which is also something that is in the Mark McClandish documentary Zero Point. So yeah, just I want to plug that documentary. It's really fascinating. So go check out that Zero Point documentary. It's free on YouTube. But some really good information in it. But if not in that video on the Y Files, in another video, he does talk about free energy pioneers, people who have been developing stuff like Zero Point energy and alternate sources of free energy, maybe inspired by Tesla or other places that have developed this stuff that have mysteriously met their deaths. And that seems to go around, unfortunately. Like I did a video not too long ago on the scientist that worked for Marconi, the company in Europe. And in the 90s, there was a rash of mysterious deaths among those scientists. And Marconi is thought to have maybe had some UFO technology from the UFO that Mussolini obtained back in the 1930s. And big if true, right? But it does seem like mysterious deaths pursue this topic. So, yeah, something to think about. Let's see. Yeah, the Bearded Jedi says, apparently they are good guys and they are fighting the good fight. The Galactic Federation. Yeah, that's my understanding too. That is my understanding too. I don't know much about them, but from what I've heard, I've been encouraged that they're the good guys. They're who we should be interacting with. I don't know what specific races compose the Galactic Federation. The Pleiadians, the Arcturians. I don't know that. Do you know? If you know, let me know. Rick Roberts says he briefly touched on Zero Point and said he will probably go deeper on that. And talking about, is that the Y Files? And Bearded Jedi says she's a psychic medium. She's a sight for sore eyes too. Okay, well, I will have to seek out her videos. But yeah, she claims, we're talking about Megan Rose, who is a psychic medium, claims to be in contact with Val Neck in the Galactic Federation. Val Neck sounds like Valiant Thor a little bit. I wonder if Val Thor is real, if Val Neck is in any way connected to whatever culture Val Thor comes from. Interesting. There's various beings that have come down here interacting with people that people have taken pictures of and had relationships with, and I'm thinking of the friendship case in Italy, where you had that really tall giant alien and the little short guy. And it's who knows how many of these cases are legit and how many are not, but it's really interesting to think that there are real live aliens walking around, allowing themselves to be photographed and to develop relationships with people and enter the public awareness. I think that's super fascinating. Let's see. All right, yeah. The Kippen alien is real. Who is the Kippen alien? I'm not familiar with the Kippen alien. Can you elaborate on the 4 Up? Can you elaborate on the Kippen alien? But yeah. So let's see. I don't think there's any. I'm not seeing any new news coming out about the UAP report. I'm not seeing any responses. I was hoping that Lou Elizondo would reply to me, but maybe I was hoping for too much. I was hoping he would reply by the end of the live stream, and so far he hasn't. But I really want to know his answer if he can provide one. Because he says, basically, don't worry, guys, because there's going to be future reports and they will have more information. And I think that's true. I mean, these are early days. They're still arranging the furniture over there at Arrow. So we shouldn't get too upset. But at the same time, when you see them openly lying about stuff like health effects, that really makes me worry if they are interested in disclosure at all. And that's where my mind goes. They're lying about it, seeming to perpetuate the lies that Bray and Moultrie were telling before Congress. So that really it doesn't encourage me about Arrow, but it is early days yet. I'm sure there's a lot of internal struggle and conflict going on over there, and we will have to see how things shake out. And hopefully, the pro-disclosure forces, gain the upper hand. But like I said earlier, I do think there are other things going on and other factors involved, namely getting the government and Congress on the side of disclosure, catching them up to speed. So a lot of this stuff, from the beginning, Lou Elizondo, all these guys, Harry Reid, they didn't originally want disclosure. They wanted those programs to become special access programs. They wanted even less disclosure. They wanted them to be even more secretive because they wanted government to take it seriously. They wanted government to take the issue seriously and address the problem, to actually, resolve or come to some grips with the UAP UFO enigma, and which is the important thing, right? For us to learn what the UAP enigma represents, the phenomenon, and come to interact with it in a positive way. So that's what they wanted. And they wanted the government to do that. And so originally, Lou, as much as I love him, and I'm not even saying that his impulse was wrong, but he did. He wanted government to take it seriously. And when they didn't, he went public. And thank God he did. I mean, thank God he did. And he has been the leading advocate of disclosure. He is the face of UFO disclosure. And, I couldn't love him more. He's just, yeah, love you, Lou. Love you, Chris. All those guys, TTSA, Tom DeLong. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. But yeah, originally, I think they did want government to take it more seriously. And I think that is a guiding, that is still a desire. And that is a big part of what is going on is trying to get government and Congress to take this issue more seriously. And I think that is happening right now. And once it gets to a certain point where it has matriculated out through Congress and the government, and it is mainstream, and they are able to make plans at a mainstream level within government, then they will have a game plan, and they can start disclosing a lot more to the public. We talk about the 7-year plan of disclosure. Well, if there was a 7-year plan of disclosure, and if there was, then it wasn't by this faction that is in control now, because that would have started, yesterday with the report. So I think we have to get to that point. Mainstream government has to embrace this topic, and then they will develop their own internally. They will develop their own plan for disclosure, and then to roll it out. At least that's how I see it. That's how I see it. I would love it to be proven wrong. I would love for them to come out tomorrow and disclose this stuff. But that's kind of what I'm seeing and where my mind is going. Um, Oh, the bearded Jedi says she literally does live streams and he talks to her. Oh, live. Oh, that is fascinating. Yeah, Val Neck, talking about the psychic medium who does live streams where she actually channels the being Val Neck. I think that's I'm interpreting that right. Here's a great question. What are your thoughts on the billionaire Bob Bigelow saying we don't have to go anywhere? They are already here. Yeah, no, I mean, I love Bob Bigelow. We wouldn't be having this conversation without Bob Bigelow. I mean, there's a lot of key players that made all of this possible. Lou Elizondo, Bob Bigelow, George Knapp, Chris Mellon. Without Tom DeLonge, without any of these guys, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And so I love Bob Bigelow. I would love to know what he knows. Like on the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, the TV show, where you have like the landslide on the mesa. And some people think that was deliberately trying to hide something up, and that was done in the Bigelow era. I don't know if that's real. I don't, whatever, but who knows? So, maybe he knows a lot that he can't say. But no, I love Bob Bigelow, cool guy, very colorful character in all of this. And I really do love Bob because he has gone to the consciousness part of it all. He is interested in the consciousness ramifications of it all, and even proving things like the afterlife. So I think that, well, yeah, they're here. They are here. 100%. They're here. He is 100% correct. The beings are here. They are walking among us. Go read David Jacobs' book, Walking Among Us. Or is it They Walk Among Us, or is it Walking Among Us? When it talks about the human-alien hybrid program. And specifically, it details how the hybrids are learning our culture and our society and learning basic human things. And yeah, you may never sleep again after reading that book, but yeah, they're here. The hybrids are here, definitely. They may be in the grocery store. So, but more than hybrids, the beings, the non-hybrid beings are here. Some of them probably live here and have for a long time. Some of them may or may not have created us. Some of them are coming from outside of our reality. At least that's how it appears. People like Whitley Strieber call them fishers in the stream of time. I mean, that's Whitley's phrase. Other people have had the same experience with them, where they are coming from outside of our dimension and our known reality. But yeah, Whitley calls them fishers in the stream of time, where at least some subset of these beings are coming from beyond. And they come into our reality like fishers coming into a stream, and they pluck out the fish, I guess, the abductee or contactee, and they do whatever they need to do with that person, and then they bring back. And then they leave the stream and they go back to where they came from. So, I mean, that's Whitley Strieber's idea. And from a lot of the evidence and research I've done and the limited interactions that I've had, I believe that is the case. So, yeah, there's the metaphysical part of this can't be overstated, and not just the metaphysical, but the dimensional and extra dimensional part of this can't be overstated. So yeah, they are absolutely here. Some of them may be ultra terrestrials, and I made a couple of videos recently about beings that may live underground and seem to live underground. And I made a video a few days ago about newly discovered um, Vatican documents in their archives that indicate that the noble families of Europe, at least some of them, were interacting with the subterranean race or races back in like the 1400s. I mean, that's crazy. I don't know how they were interacting, what they were doing, but that's super fascinating. But yeah, so do those qualify as aliens? Were they here before humans? Did they evolve on Earth organically? I don't know, but yeah, I think there's ultra terrestrials, there's extraterrestrials, and there's other dimensionals. I think it's all real, and then there's spirits and other beings. That's my belief. That's my belief. I'd love to know what you guys think. But yeah, so I think Bob Bigelow is right on the money. Love Bob. Bearded Jedi says, I love Lou Elizondo. I wonder what he meant when he said the world would be somber when we finally find out the truth. Yeah, me too. Me too. Maybe because we're not, the highest, in the food chain anymore. I don't know. Could it, James Greenwood says, could it be that they are saying that there are no health effects or crashes with aircraft in the limited time frame of the 366 or however many the number was reported cases since the office opened? Well, that's a very good point, James. That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Because you're absolutely right. And if they're only limiting, what they're talking about to those 366 cases, then they could be referring to that. They did seem to have a more broad, referring to the phenomenon more broadly, but they didn't say more broadly. They didn't say we have found this to be true all across the board. They said we have looked at these cases and we found there's no health effects. So you are absolutely right, James, and I think that is a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. And so, hopefully, as they broaden their scope and look at more cases, they will, discover more. I hate to discover more health effects. I don't want people to have bad health effects, but it's a thing, and it needs to be known and addressed. And hopefully, the beings will be a little bit more careful and cautious, and not put human beings in a position where they would get irradiated or whatever, or like the blue orbs in the case of that poor fellow related in the skinwalkers at the Pentagon. The beings sought him out. The blue orbs were playfully frolicking, and then they came to him. Were they intelligent? Were they like puppies that wanted to play? I don't know. I mean, the blue orbs seem to be intelligently controlled at times. So anyway, but yeah, but no, that's a great point. But I guess I would add to that, if we're talking about those 366 cases, then that would mean that they're not looking at the cases they should have in their books already, like the Skinwalker Ranch material. They should have that. I mean, that was a government program, ALSAP and BASS. That was a government stuff. They should have those case files. That should be part of their, what they're looking at. But if they're only looking at the military encounters, then they wouldn't have that. So, but they should. They should. So I don't know, but that's a great point, James. Thank you for bringing that up. Bearded Jedi says, off topic slightly, did you see Billy Corgan interview where he said someone literally shapeshifted in front of him? No, I missed that. Dang. That's crazy. Well, the shapeshifting thing is something I've been fascinated by for about a week or two, ever since I started to consider skinwalkers seriously and examine what they meant in the book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, when they said they were actually able to track the migration patterns of skinwalkers. What does that mean? How can you drop that juicy nugget and then not expound on that? So I hope that George Knapp and the other his co-authors do expound on that, because that was super intriguing. But yeah, ever since learning of the reality of shamanic magic and spirituality, with ayahuasca ceremonies, and then hearing about bad shamans that have their own selfish interest at heart and not other people's well-being, people that use their abilities for ill and evil instead of good. It makes me wonder, could shape-changing entities like skinwalkers be real? And so I haven't heard that, but if a credible person says they saw a person or a being change shape in front of them, at this point, I would tend to believe them, or at least take what they said very seriously. Yeah, I've got to see that. Billy Corgan. Okay, I'm going to check that out. I remember Billy saying that, but never looked into it. Wasn't it a music exec? Yeah, Billy Corgan. Was that? Could that have been a Grant Cameron interview? Because he does several. He has done several interviews with musicians who have had experiences. And I can't remember if Billy Corgan was one of them. If he was, if we're talking about a musician, and that's really interesting that they do gravitate. I mean, seemingly, according to Grant Cameron, that they do gravitate toward the artistically inclined. Is that because they're using a part of their brain that non artistic people don't? I don't know, but that's an interesting wrinkle in all this. Leoxy says there are highly intelligent and technologically advanced beings on this planet. Been here since long before Homo sapiens. That seems to be true. That seems to be true. I don't understand it. If they're here, why don't we encounter them? Is it because they're living in subterranean cities? Is it because they just think we're stupid and they have high technology and they can avoid us? I don't know. But yeah, that the whole ultra terrestrial thing seems to be real, but it doesn't make trying to understanding it logically is hard. I mean, if we just drill down into the earth, would we find them, or are they slightly phase shifted out of our reality? Like some people say the beings on Venus are. If there are beings on Venus, George Adamski interacted and multiple other experiences interacted with beings that said they were from Venus. Were they? Were they just telling him something he could relate to? But other people have explained it, saying that there are beings on Venus, but they are slightly phase shifted, or they exist on a different vibration. So, I don't know. Possibly in the oceans. Yeah, absolutely. Um, you should watch it while doing a reaction video so we can watch later. Okay. All right. Well, I might do that. They are highly intelligent and technologically advanced beings. Yes, they are. I believe it. I believe that I think that the research indicates very strongly that the ultra terrestrials are real. I mean, even the Vatican knew about them. I mean, I say even the Vatican. Of course, the Vatican knew about them. I mean, the Vatican probably knows just about everything. But let's see. Any replies from Elizondo? No. But yeah, okay. But please, hit like. Please, comment below after the live stream so people can see some people actually watch this, and subscribe and hit the bell. Consider becoming a channel member to support Cosmic Road. And there's 2 tiers. Tier 2 gets exclusive videos. Although I say that, nobody seems to be watching the exclusive videos. So, I may dial back on that. Well, I say dial back. I've only made a couple. But nobody watches them. So let's see. Probably in the ocean. Sent you a link in Messenger. Okay, cool. Read Chains of the Sea. Lou mentioned it in a podcast a few years ago. Interesting. What is Chains of the Sea? Is that about beings that live in the sea? That's really interesting. But yeah, they come and go from the oceans all the time. So what does that mean? Are they using the water as a medium because they actually live in subterranean bases below the ocean? Or do they have cities on the ocean floor? Or, again, maybe slightly phase shifted out of the reality that we can perceive, but they're there? Or are they just living in our reality, in our regular 3D reality, in some trench somewhere? Or maybe they don't even require buildings and they don't need cities and they just kind of swim around doing their thing like mermaids or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. But well, anyway, it's been over an hour, guys. I think I'm gonna wrap this up. But does anybody have any final points or questions or anything? Any comments? Um, I'm happy to give it another few minutes. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and thank you for the super chat or the super thanks, if I'm saying that right. But thank you guys for being here. It's been fun. I'm really enjoying doing these live streams. I think I'm going to have to do more of them. Yeah, it is fun. It kind of gets my blood going, and I love interacting with you guys, and just live. So I think it's a lot of fun. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Like and subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Thanks for the live. Okay, well, I appreciate you too, guys. Yeah. All right. All right. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. Over and out.